Welcome to the Open Adoption Project. We're the Nelsons. I'm Lynette.
And I'm Sean. In today's episode, we have a discussion with Joanna and Matt, who are adoptive parents of two.
We're really excited to share this with you. We are friends with Joanna and Matt, and we actually met at a soccer game that our kids were both playing in.
You'll hear a little bit about that in the episode. But we wanted to share their experience and their story with you because we feel like they have a really good balance and understanding of what open adoption is and could be. And we just wanted to share their experiences so that others in the adoption community could understand. Again, we really appreciate Joanna and Matt for sharing their story with us, and we'll jump to our conversation with them now.
We are here on the podcast with Joanna and Matt. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
To start off, can you guys tell us a bit about yourselves?
I will start. Grew up in Las Vegas and love music. I write songs for a living. And
Matt loves musicals, games, and sports, and is very chill. Is a great dad too. So I'm a school teacher. I teach second grade. I love it. I was raised as a military brat is the term that people use, but I moved around a lot. So we were in Europe for most of my growing up years. And then I came to Utah, and Matt and I met when we were pretty young. And then we got married at like 20 and 22. And then Matt and I do a YouTube channel together called Hopscotch, which is what he does with songwriting. So that's the basic gist. We like the outdoors. We love hiking. We love friends. We love traveling.
Do you want to talk a little more about what Hopscotch is, just in case people are curious?
Yeah. So Hopscotch is kind of the union of our two hobbies. So I, as an educator, and Matt as a musician, a few years ago, I wanted just better quality educational content for my kids as a school teacher. And I asked, I would look on YouTube, and I was like, these songs are kind of hard to listen to as an adult, and I would love to have something else that's fun for kids and adults to listen to. And so I asked Matt, could you write a song about, like, at the time I was like, could you write a song about 7 continents? Could you write a song about skip counting? Could you write some songs? And Matt said, sure. And then I started using them, and then other teachers in the school started using them. And then I thought, hey, we could maybe share this with other people. And so we made a YouTube channel and hired some animators and just got a few off the ground, and then it's kind of just took off from there.
And Hopscotch is really fun. I've watched some of the videos. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. It's really fun. We enjoy it, and we're always learning new things.
So you said you got married at a relatively young age, and then how exactly did your adoption journey begin?
So I have Crohn's disease, and so the first few years of our marriage were spent kind of in and out of hospitals, in and out of doctor's appointments. And Matt was such a good support to me as we figured it all out. And so after a few years of that and figuring out surgeries and medication, then we got to do the next adventure of infertility treatments. And so, and then a few years after that, we were kind of just feeling like overwhelmed with it all. Like we knew we wanted to be parents. That had always been part of our shared dream, our shared goals. I had actually always kind of wanted to adopt as well. Even as a kid, my mom would joke that I was always, when we played the game of life as a kid, I was like taking all my siblings' kids that they didn't want to pay, because in the game of life, you have to like pay taxes on your kids. And my siblings are very practical, and they're like, we don't want this. I was like, I'll adopt your kid. It was ridiculous. I was 10 years old, and I was already like, I want these children.
a double-decker car
probably
going on the board.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. We had always wanted kids, Matt and I started out saying like, oh, we want 10 kids. And then eventually realizing that was not going to be our story. And then as we were kind of grappling with the heart-wrenching process of infertility, we opened up to the idea of maybe pursuing both at the same time, adoption and infertility treatments. And right as we had to kind of come to this, we got a call from Matt's parents, and his cousin was expecting a baby. And we had run into her at their grandpa's funeral that summer. And her life had just been really hard over the last few years. And this was an unplanned pregnancy, and she was considering us to be adoptive parents and wondered if we were interested in adoption and if we would be interested in being a parent to this baby. And we had no idea that she was considering adoption for this baby. And we were very honored that she was calling through family just to see if we would be interested. And so we thought about it. We're religious, so we prayed to God about it as well. And instantly just felt very peaceful, and wrote a letter to her saying, thank you so much for considering us. We respect your right to choose, and we respect that you're thinking about it, and we don't want you to feel like you have to make a decision right away. Please let us know what questions you have, because she knew Matt pretty well. They grew up together. They're similar ages, but she didn't know me very well. We had met a few times, but not that much. So we just wrote a letter saying, thanks for considering us. We are interested, but we also want you to know that we respect your right to change your mind at any point. And at this point, she was 7 months along. So baby was due. We didn't have a lot of time in between that call and then when he was born. And so we wrote a letter, and then we heard back, hey, we want to meet, let's talk. And so we made an appointment to meet with her and her parents, who are Matt's aunt and uncle, and then Matt's parents. So we met together. It was just a Sunday morning, and
we were going in thinking like, we were gonna kind of talk about what the different possibilities might be, and we were not at all expecting too much to happen from the situation necessarily. But then we got there. One of Celeste's first questions was, so have you guys thought about what you're gonna name him? And
whoa, we were not expecting that. We thought she would have a million questions for us before making a decision, but she had already made her mind up.
She had purposely not contacted us until she was 100% sure about it, because she didn't want to get our hopes up, and didn't want to overcomplicate it, I guess. She was all in. She gave us some ultrasound pictures, and we were just overwhelmed with just joy and kind of disbelief and gratitude.
After, she said, what are you going to name him? We said, oh my goodness. Wow. Well, obviously, at this point, the call had happened at the beginning of August. It had been maybe 2 weeks since that time. And so we had thought about it. We had texted a little bit about the gender of the baby after we had talked. And we had felt excited about the name Emerson, who's our son's name. And when we told her the name Emerson, she was really excited, because that's their grandpa's middle name, whose funeral it had been, and that's one of the places she had decided that she wanted to place him with us. And so it's kind of cool. And we thought that name was so fitting because it's their shared heritage. So as soon as we got the call, we had started on our home study process, just in case, because we wanted to be ready. And so as soon as we got the call, that was probably the first overwhelming thing. We had kind of looked into it before we even got the call, because we had just opened up to the idea of adoption, and simultaneously with infertility treatments and process of adoption, because our expectations were very low. We thought it would take a long time. It would probably take years, which was definitely more true with our subsequent adoption. But in this case, it was very quick. And so we got paperwork, and we went to a class workshop done through our local adoption specialist. And it was awesome. And they had lots of great things to help us understand a little bit more about how to create a better open adoption relationship, and try and give us some more perspectives. And I really appreciated those perspectives. I think we had always wanted an open adoption, but going to those classes helped us to see some of the awesome benefits as well.
It was really eye-opening, and just really helpful. Most of it was just hearing experiences from different people, all on different sides of the triangle. It was just really great to see okay, there's people have gone through this. There's a community here.
Another thing, because we are more distantly related, when we sat down and met with Celeste, we wanted to just know what were her expectations. What do you want this adoption to look like? And she had similar questions for us. Her mom and dad had some great questions too. Is this going to be a secret? Is this going to, and that was one thing that we really didn't want. We didn't want it to be a big, weird family secret that everybody knew he was adopted, and he, we just didn't want that. So right off the bat, I said, we don't want it to be a secret. We feel like this is one of the best things. And we want our child to know how special it is, and not have it be a secret or be weird between the families, or create any mystery, So that was great. We just started off with those sorts of things. How do we want it to look? What are your expectations? What are your hopes and dreams? Are there any things that we should know that you're hoping for? Even with names, her mom said, hey, we'd love to know your name just in case it's a name that Celeste doesn't like, because maybe that would be bad, and Celeste's like, hey, this is your kid. I'm not, for her, she was okay. She was like, this is not about me, which I honestly think it is about her, and she's amazing. But for her, from her perspective, she was very thoughtful in just the process, and we appreciated the discussion with her, especially right at the beginning, right at the onset.
And we tried to just be like open about like just trying to think of like anything that could like be like a hiccup in anything. Like, okay, what if we like moved to England? Like, would that be a problem? Like, what if we, it's like trying to like put it all out there at the beginning, just so that it was just like clear communication and everyone knows what we're expecting. And
that's great.
Yeah. And for Celeste, she was like, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. And, for other people it might be, and that would be okay. But we just want to make sure we were actually the right fit.
She, right at the beginning, talked about the birth. We talked about a birth plan together. Again, this was 40 days before he was born. So it was a very quick turnaround from the discussions, and it meant that we needed, well, from my perspective, I really wanted to make sure that we communicated so that it could be at least a little bit less traumatic for her, especially. And she was very inclusive for us. She invited us to all of his remaining appointments, and to his birth. It was really special to be there for that, for everything we could be. I remember we went out to lunch together after one of the appointments and just talked. And because she knew Matt pretty well, but she didn't know me, and that was another question I had for her when we sat down the first time was, what do you want to know about me? I know you know Matt, but what do you want to know about me? For all she knew, I could have been, I could have been crazy.
Her worst nightmare.
Hopefully not. But she did mention, I've seen you over the years. Matt and I had been married 6 years, and she said, I've seen you at family reunions. You've always been kind to my kids. I've seen the way you're a teacher, So she did have, I guess, some things that she knew about me, even if we hadn't talked a ton. And so that was really, I guess, really meaningful to me that she had enough of a background with me to feel comfortable right at the beginning. And, we said, do you want to know about our potential parenting styles? Do you want to know about this? She's like, I think it'll be great. So she had a lot of faith and a lot of trust in us right at the beginning. And I think that helped us in turn to also have a lot of faith and trust in her over those next few months as we awaited the arrival of this baby.
She did have her priorities. Like, she wanted this child to have like music in their life. She knew that was going to happen with our family. She wanted them to have like the church,
her specific
like the beliefs and
the belief
community
system
and stuff of that. So yeah, she had her things that she wanted, and everything else she was like, yeah, whatever. Celeste invited both of us to be there. She was like, Matt, Joanna, if you feel comfortable being there, like I'm cool with that. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to be there for my kid's birth. Yeah, we all showed up early in the morning. It was scheduled. She was scheduled to be induced, and so we all showed up early in the morning, just kind of ready to wait however long it was going to be and just be with her there. And it was just really cool.
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about the birth ahead of time. So I had never been to a birth before. This was a new experience. We tried to do some basic research of what to expect, and I was a little nervous because Matt has been queasy in past medical procedures with me, and so I was like, no, you got to get this together. We need to make sure we're prepared.
Like Joanna's the one getting like needles put in her, and I'm the one that's like getting lightheaded. Right?
Yeah, and the nurse would be like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And we're not talking to you. Come on, get it together, man. But yeah, so we tried to do some research, and we talked a little bit about what she wanted at the hospital. She was such a trooper, and she had a good support system. Her mom was there. She had a good friend with her as well. And so, yeah, so we kind of all went, and she was really sweet. She was like, if you want a photographer there, if you know, so the hospital, this was obviously pre-COVID. But yeah, so we had a photographer there, a good friend that takes pictures in the hospital. And then, yeah, and so that was really sweet. We were there at 6 a.m. and he was born at 6 p.m. So it was like 12 hours of hanging out together, and Matt played on the guitar. Like, we watched a movie, we talked, we took naps, and it was really chill compared to the ones you see in the movies, and just a special time together to talk. One thing that we had done, because she loves music was a huge factor for her in picking us, and in feeling like that connection with Matt and with her. They both love music. And so one thing we had done was to write a lullaby for our son in preparation. And so at the hospital, Matt played that lullaby for her, and she loved it. And we kind of just cried together and talked about, this baby that brought us together. And it kind of changed our relationship. We knew her. Matt had known her his whole life, but there was just a new connection. So that was kind of a special moment in the hospital, and trying to be there for her and not be in her way. And she showed up to the hospital with gifts for us, which we were absolutely shocked and a little bit, I don't know, mortified. Like, you can't give me anything. You're already doing so much for us. But she said, I couldn't sleep last night. It's just like Christmas. I just am so excited for you guys to be parents. And so she had like new parent gifts, like a pillow and a sleep mask for me, and then earplugs, and just kind of funny ones, but also just really sweet. We had some gifts for her, like flowers and some toiletries maybe, and but yeah, just a few basic things to hopefully help her feel a little more comfortable. But like, what do you do for someone who is entrusting you with a child? There's just a huge connection to be able to share this baby together. And that was a little bit about before the baby was born. As the day got on farther and he was getting closer to being born, I guess she had an epidural, which was helpful, so she could be more comfortable and a little bit more relaxed. And then and that was obviously all her choice when she was ready to push, and we were all just there for it. And it was just beautiful. We had talked ahead of time, and she said, I want it to be as much like it's your birth as possible. Like, she almost sounded like she didn't want to get in the way. And I was like, this is as much your experience as it is ours. So she was just very thoughtful, very, very thoughtful. And I just hope that we were as thoughtful and considerate of her as well. And so when he was born, the doctor set baby on her, and then later, after he was all cleaned up, passed him to me. And then I brought him over to her, and we looked at him together and just admired this cute little human. So, but yeah.
I got to cut the umbilical cord.
Yeah. So,
that's so cool.
Yeah, I did that with our first as well.
It's the coolest.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Really special.
So special. So yeah. So that was his birth. We were there at the hospital together, and then we had a room right next door to each other, and tried to make sure, we talked to her ahead of time. We want to make sure you get time with him. And she was so wise and prepared. She had also talked to a counselor. We loved that she was getting, just both of us were getting some help with counselors to make sure we were doing the best we could with the knowledge we had at the time, and so she spent some time on Sunday after, like the morning after, just talking to him one-on-one. And we would go into her room, she would come into ours. We just tried, well, she couldn't move as much, so we just texted and wanted to, when can we come in, and spent some time together talking and admiring cute little human.
That's awesome.
That hospital time's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So what did placement look like with this specific situation? I know we're going to talk about your second adoption as well, but...
We were in the room next door, and the social worker came in and talked to her. I think that you're not supposed to be in the same room. I could be wrong.
I think you're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and we were wanting to just be respectful of whatever her needs were. So she had people with her, a good support system. And then afterwards we came in and chatted, and she held him, and she was very, she just seemed pretty upbeat. She knew what she wanted. And I'm sure that there was a lot more behind the scenes. I'm sure I'm sure. And also at the same time, she had said from the beginning, I know that this is what's best for him, and this is what's best for me, and this is going to be good. Yeah, we spent some time together afterwards. But yeah, we didn't do anything too different, partly because from the beginning when we talked about it, she was just so sure. We did try and make sure, because we lived pretty close to each other after he was born, we just tried to make sure, especially at the beginning, that we spent some time together. So I think we saw each other about once a week for the first month. So she could just hold him. And as he got a little older, it became a little less frequent. Not necessarily because we were so happy for her to come and spend time with him.
Whenever.
And for us to spend time with her, that was not an issue. I think it was just as she was recovering and doing other things, life gets busier as he got older. And so, but yeah, we still enjoy time with her. So it's awesome.
Well, we'll probably ask lots of follow-up questions about both stories, but do you want to tell us now about your second?
So we were kind of putting a lot of effort into just like tell everyone that we know we're hoping to adopt again, doing all this stuff on Instagram and Facebook, and we made like a little video about our family, and like I don't know, we were just like, all right, we're just gonna like do all the stuff that we hear you're supposed to do, and see what happens. We felt like with all the opportunities that we had seen, we weren't really financially in a place where we could do go through an agency. So we were just like kind of crossing our fingers for like someone to hear about us, and for another private adoption to just kind of happen. There was a few years of that.
A few years, yep. Like a good 4 years of that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Emerson's 5 at this point, and a couple friend of ours for Joanna's birthday gave us like a huge check
out of the blue.
Yeah, just like for an unreal amount of money, and we were like, hold on, like what is this? And I mean, they kind of put it out as like, we know you guys are wanting to grow your family, however you need to do that. We just felt like God was telling us that this money wasn't for us, like it was for someone else, and we felt like it was for you. You can't really take that lightly. I don't know how you say no to that,
I mean, we did say no initially.
At first we were like, you should reconsider this,
And also, we can't accept this because we're good enough friends that we don't want it to be weird. And anyway,
but they basically just said like, we don't care what you do with this money, like you can give it to someone else,
but we're not
for all we care, but we don't want it back. It's not for us. It's not for us. And at some point during these conversations, I was realizing like, well, this actually would put an agency adoption within our reach. And I told Joanna about that, and so we just sort of started thinking about it.
Yeah, and this was I think this was like right after we had done 2 rounds of IVF. We have tried to always pursue adoption and infertility simultaneously, for multiple reasons. One is like you don't have control over either, but when you're putting effort in, it feels like you have a little more control. You don't, but at least it feels like you do. So, so when one wasn't going well, we'd put a little bit more effort into the other one, and vice versa. And so after a few years of trying for private adoption that wasn't working, we thought, well, let's do IVF and we'll see how that goes. We'd done lots of other infertility things, but never IVF. And so we did IVF, and then it didn't work. And then we did another round, and then it did work. And then I had a miscarriage. And so it broke me emotionally, and it changed a little bit about the way I felt about loss. And so that was another obstacle later on with this particular adoption that was a little bit harder for me than it had been with Emerson initially. But with that, all of our friends said, you've already spent this money in much, much more. So as far as we're concerned, we're just helping pay for all your infertility treatment. It wasn't even necessarily paying it forward. But to us, we felt like just maybe it could put us within reach of an agency if that was the right thing for our family. And I still had heard a lot of things about agencies. I was kind of a little worried, but we would get, because we had always stayed home study ready and tried to be current, we did still get emails from our social worker about possible situations. And one particular situation caught our view, and it was a birth mom out of state from an agency that was looking for a couple with our same religious background and faith. And so and we looked at it and we thought about it and said, sure, why not? We've got that. We had this kind of kick to think about it. And so we just emailed and said, yeah, we're interested, and we shared our profile with them. And then we got a call from the agency saying she wanted to talk with us over the phone. And so they patched us through, and all the while they have an agency representative there. And we talked, and then we heard that she liked us and she wanted to go forward. And so then we had this mountain of agency paperwork that was so scary. It was a lot of things to sign, and a lot of money that we didn't. I mean, we did have some, but it was, maybe going to be for a down payment for a house or something else. And so it was just a different experience, and it was hard because I didn't like that. I didn't like thinking about money when I thought about growing my family, and yet in the world of infertility, that's the way it is. Either way, you invest in your family, and yet it still feels like dirty to think about it that way, and I don't like it, and it was uncomfortable, and it was out of my realm of experience. And so there was a lot of things going into this that were different, and yet when we talked to her, it just she was just fun and very chill and a little more frank, like just calling it how she saw it. And we liked her a lot. And also, again, it was similar with Celeste, where we were like, just to make sure, like you picked us on a phone call. She had seen our profile. She knew a little bit more about us, but we asked to talk to her again before signing anything, because we just wanted her to know it, like not to know if she was going to place with us necessarily, but if she was thinking about placing with us,
to know what she was getting,
to know what she was choosing. Because I still was like, I know that that's what our profile says, but just to make sure. So we talked again on the phone. I was like, just so you know, I didn't vote for so-and-so, or I didn't, I just really wanted her to know, just in case, what if we're not a good fit? What if she doesn't like us? And I want her to know immediately, because I didn't want to get her hopes up, or anyway. So
we might not be dog people.
Yeah.
Is that a deal breaker?
Is it a deal breaker? And because that's something that she does love dogs. And so, so we talked, and then, once we said, yeah, and we moved forward, and then we asked the agency to just be able to talk with her again. And that apparently isn't as common with this particular agency. And so we did have to kind of advocate for that. And but I think it was good. She and we just like to getting to know each other a little better. And so, yeah, we signed paperwork, and we asked the agency to kind of move forward with doing an open communication agreement, which was separate, so that we could get each other's contact information outside. Because up until this point, an agency representative had to be available and had to be there to listen in on both sides of the conversation.
Yeah, she didn't know our last names.
She didn't know our last. We didn't know hers. They had it all redacted just to make sure that privacy was respected, which I get from an agency point of view. We respect that's the way it's done. And also it was just a different world to us. And so there was a big learning curve. But as we got to know each other more and talked a little bit more frequently, it was fun to get to know her. And also I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety about just the recognition that I knew what loss felt like, and I didn't really want to get attached, because what if it didn't work out? And I wanted to respect her right to parent if she chose to do that. And both of our children, their birth parents are older than us, which also I liked that, because I felt like they were coming from a place of wisdom, and both have parented other children and are wonderful, wonderful moms. And so they have a lot to offer with wisdom and ideas. And anyway, but at the same time, there's an anxious part of me. So that was a reality of the situation, which it was 5 months before birth. And so that whole time on the back of my mind was a little bit of, I felt like I was going a little crazy. I'm excited, but I don't want to be excited. So there was a little bit of that, and
anxiety.
Yeah, I want to prepare, but I don't want to prepare in case in case she changes her mind, which I want to respect, and I want to make sure that I'm okay with that, because I feel like you need to be okay with either one. This is her baby. It will always be her baby, even if we adopt him. We share this baby. And so anyway, and he can also be my baby, but just just a little bit of, so yeah, I did definitely meet with a counselor and try to work through some of that. And then we also wanted to meet her in person, because she lives out of state. And so we planned a trip to go see her in June. He was born in August. And so we went down and visited her, and this was all, arranged with her, what she felt comfortable with, and found our own accommodations, obviously, and met up with her, and met her, some of her family members, and that was really fun. And nerve-wracking. And with our first son, it was easy to be like, yeah, we're going to be great parents, because we didn't have any kids yet. So of course we were going to be great parents.
It's all hypothetical.
It's all hypothetical. But with our second son, we now we have a 5-year-old. And so when we met her, we were very aware that she was going to watch us parent our son for, the days we were with her. And on the one hand, of course, we want to be open and honest in who we are. And also you want to present your best foot. And
yeah, the first time we saw her was the first hour of church. Our 5-year-old is like, we're trying to like help him sit through this this meeting of speakers, and nothing for kids. And
we're traveling, so we don't have all of our normal resources, and it's been a pandemic, so he's not used to sitting in church. And it was like a little bit of a comedy, and also she was super cool and kind about it, and just and she had invited us to come to her church, her congregation, to because she wanted to introduce us. She was like, I want you to meet my people. I want you to meet my friends. And so it was very nerve-wracking. Like, okay, we're gonna go. We're gonna meet your friends. We're gonna just like feel so vulnerable, right? Just like, this is who we are. And also, I hope you like it, but you might not. So
for that to be the first place with a lot of other people around, I'm sure that could be really challenging.
Yeah, but she had a whole itinerary planned. Like we went on hikes together when we went, and she wanted to show us her favorite spots. She showed us around the area and
to eat with friends,
the local mine, and she had friends that hosted us for dinner, and so it was really special. We felt like we understood her so much better after that trip, to really get to know her and to honor her family, and to honor some of the things that she finds that she loves, like the outdoors. And we met her dogs. Were very cute. We say we're not dog people, but I love other people's dogs. I feel like I'm not ready to commit to owning one, because I want that creature to have the best life. And I feel like Matt and I are too much of a borderline dog people, but yeah, you get it. You get the idea. So
yeah.
So we went out to meet her, and then we got to go to an ultrasound appointment and talked to her doctor, and kind of the doctor was really good about saying, let's talk about a birth plan. Let's talk about what you want it to look like. And so that gave her an opportunity to kind of open up some more questions and discussion about what we wanted it to look like. And yeah, so then we came back for the birth. So leaving our other son in the care of grandparents, and again, it's out of state. So she had a scheduled induction, and then we went out of state and to this induction date. And then the hospital where she lives is small, and they didn't have room. So every day she called for a week and was expecting to go in. And every day for a week, they said, call again tomorrow, call again tomorrow, call again tomorrow. And so in that time, we hung out. we did a lot together. We went out to eat, we played games. And it ended up just being a really cool bonding experience to have some more time together, especially because our son was still with grandparents. And so before, we had been kind of just making sure our son's needs were met, and now we could really just make sure that that our Katie's needs were met. And so our son's birth mom's needs were met. And so that was really fun and special, and we actually really appreciated that extra week with her.
I played a lot of baseball with one of her other sons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Every day we just went out and hit baseballs, and while we waited.
I can't wrap my mind around that with the hospital saying, you can't come yet.
Yeah.
That's so wild, but it sounds like it worked out well.
Yeah, and it didn't go past her initial due date.
I think that was also part of my anxiety. I was like, what if I get a call and I'm not ready, and she lives this far away? And, there's always that at the back of your mind when it's an out of state experience. But yeah, it was wonderful. And I really think that everything that we did ahead of time to get to know her was helpful for everyone in the process. I think she's expressed appreciation for that as well, just to really know us better. And then when it came time for her to give birth, she just knew that we loved her and cared about her so much, and that we honored the wishes that she had for this son, and that we continue to honor her every day, same as our other son's birth mom. And so yeah, we went to the hospital. She invited me to the birth. She was a little less comfortable with Matt being there, just being an unrelated male.
Understandably.
And it worked out because now it is COVID times. And so she could only have 2 guests with her. One was her friend as a support, and then the other one was me. And so we were there, and this one was a overnighter. So I slept on a pad on the floor of labor and delivery. It was a little bit slower with the induction, and was embarrassed that I snored. I felt so embarrassed by that. So things like that. But so yeah, and then he was born the next day, and it was surreal. I felt so privileged to be there, and I got to cut the umbilical cord for our second son. So that was fun and nerve-wracking, and just be a support system to his birth mom throughout the birth, be there to help her when she got her epidural. And I think just kind of a special privilege to be there, and not one that's common as far as I know, in the adoption world. But we felt so grateful for the relationship that we had with both of them that allowed for that situation to be comfortable for all parties.
I love that. So what does your relationship look like now with all of your birth family?
Yeah, I think it's like dual roles. Like, they're my extended family, but they're his birth family. I think maybe even more.
Yeah, more
at this point, and therefore our immediate family, it seems.
Relationship wise, so I can give you some examples. We with Emerson's birth family, he does have birth siblings, and so we love to be together for birthdays, for their birthdays, for Emerson's birthday when possible. Birthdays are a fun way to make sure we have some events planned specifically for those things. Usually we get together around Christmas. We get together because they're in state and they're close by, so it's a little easier. But Emerson's always invited to their birthday parties, and then we usually try and do something special with his birth mom around her birthday. This last year we had her over for some cake, and we played some games, and Emerson had picked out a present for her, and so that was fun. those are some things that we like to do. And then usually at Christmas we'll go sledding together, or they were kind enough to have us up for dinner this year, which was really special. So yeah, usually about 3 or 4 times a year we'll get together, and then we do some Marco Polos back and forth, and things like that. And then with Katie, with our newborn's birth mom, because she's out of state, we do a lot of Marco Polo, and we text and send pictures. And then we also had her up here for Christmas this year, which was really special. We loved that. It was a meaningful time to be able to spend, where we had gone to see her friends and met her in her world before he was born, and then now after he's born, to invite her into our world so that she could see our friends and kind of see him settled and spend some quality time together. So she has some family in the area up here, so we could kind of split time. She could split time and have some time with us, and then if she needed to retreat, then she could. So that was really I loved it. I think they did too. So
yeah, it was really fun.
We went sledding, and we made tie-dye shirts, and we went out to eat, and we went to a basketball game, and they went to a batting cage while she and I went and did errands together, and did some touristy things in our own town, which is always fun. But yeah, so we mainly just want it to feel like family in the end, right? So there will always be some things, maybe some messier things. So far, I feel like we've tried really hard to be good communicators and open up the door so that if there are things that they're feeling uncomfortable with, they can share that with us. But
I wanted to add, initially with Emerson's birth mom, Celeste, we wanted to establish a way that we could like send pictures, because she wanted like pictures, but she also wanted to like see them on her timetable. So it wasn't just like us texting her pictures at maybe a time that she wasn't feeling like emotionally up to seeing them. And so that was like the whole reason we got an Instagram account. It was for that, so we could just put the pictures up. She could go on whenever she wanted to see them, and then it turned out to be also a bonus for the grandparents, because then they could see all the pictures too. I think with Katie, she doesn't have any social media, right? So so that's more just like Marco Polos and texting back and forth, and we do send pictures to her, and she sends pictures to us too, so it's fun.
So I think a lot of what you shared, at least for hopeful adoptive couples that are listening, could probably glean what they could do to foster relationships both before a child's born and after. Any other advice that you might give, or kind of lessons learned either before or after placement to build those relationships? Again, I think what you shared is beautiful, but if anything advice-wise that you would share.
Definitely read about it and understand multiple perspectives. I think no matter how much I know, there's always more to learn. And so that's been very humbling, even between our first adoption experience and our second. I feel like I learned a lot more after, like in between that, and trying to advocate for ethical adoption. That was something we did with our agency, was we tried, I don't know that we succeeded, but we tried to make sure and ask good questions and check on the ethics of it and check to make sure that her needs were met. That was one thing where you hear a lot about private adoption versus agency adoption, and there was a lot that we learned about that in the process. One of the things that Katie appreciated about the agency as a birth mom is that they were really watching out for her. She had people to advocate for her all along the way, and because it was a good experience for her, I feel like that's huge, right? So even if I have maybe other questions that I would love to know a little bit more about agencies in general, for this specific experience, for this specific birth mom, it was a good experience for her, and I appreciate that. And I want to, make sure that every single adoption is perfectly ethical, and I think that that's our responsibility as adoptive parents, to make sure we advocate for good practices and make sure that not only are we following the law, but we're making sure that birth mothers are advocated for, because so often they're taken advantage of. And so we are not perfect. Matt and I are definitely not perfect at that, but we were trying. And as you learn more about it, you just, do your best to make sure that their needs are taken care of. We asked a lot about what, like, the services that they had available to her with counseling, with post-placement care. And along the way, they were really solicitous and made sure that she had her needs met. I know that sometimes agencies get a bad rap, but I do want to say that for this relationship, for this birth mom, that was a huge part for her, that she appreciated that support system. So that is one thing I wanted to say. Another one, as you think about adoption, we talk about open adoption, but the agency was like, there's a lot of different versions of open adoption, right? So even as we talk about open adoption, there's so many different ways that open adoption can look. And so that was one thing that we talked a lot about with Katie and her family coming, as they knew they wanted an open adoption. But Katie said at Christmas when we were hanging out together, like, I knew I wanted open, but I'm so grateful that it's this kind of open. I'm so grateful that we really can just talk and communicate, and it's not just like a, she and I both laughed, because after our second son Theodore's placement, we both signed open communication agreements through the agency that just like ensure that we communicate with her every 3 months and via picture or this or that. And she was like, this is ridiculous, they're going to text me all the time, I don't even have to sign this. And I was like, that's so good that you felt that we want that, and we feel the same way, that of course we'll sign it, because we would love to do more than that.
And recognize, not everyone is going to have that. There might be people who are less comfortable with that on any side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just grateful for the degree of communication that we have with our kids' families.
And also for it's like not just for us. Sometimes people be like, oh, good for you, but it's not for us. Like it's for everyone. It's for the health of all parties involved. Our son is 5, and he, for the longest time, thought every baby was adopted. Like whenever our friends, were having a kid, and it's like, oh, cool, where's the birth mom? Like, who is the baby coming from? Like he legitimately thought adoption was the typical way.
Or like when my sister was pregnant, it was like, oh, are we going to adopt that baby too? Like,
which of course we were horrified that he said at the time, but to him, adoption is just so normal. It's not a, it's not a weird thing. It's just like, obviously.
I remember our daughter saying similar things
she
a lot.
Asked someone we saw at the
grocery store
who was pregnant. She asked if she was going to place her baby with us.
Yeah, we can definitely.
And we like died. Yeah.
So it was very natural in our family, and
definitely weird for that woman, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes. So I think also people, obviously every situation is different. When we talk to people about adoption, they almost seem threatened by the idea of birth parents being involved in your kids' lives. And and it saddens me a little bit, just because I don't understand that. I guess I do understand it theoretically, but in our lives, our kids' birth parents have been nothing but supportive and kind, and just another person rooting for them. And so even at Christmas, both of our sons' birth moms got presents, not only for their son, but also for the other one. And it was just part of the family, and like birth grandparents and birth dads that we're connecting a little bit more with. But we just so much appreciate that we can understand our kids a little bit more from their heritage and honor that, so that as they grew up, they just have like lots of cool families to be there to root for them. And so another thing that we want to say to other couples, I guess, would be not everybody who adopts has infertility as part of their journey, but if infertility is part of your journey, it will continue to be part of your journey. And so I think that's been something for me, is someone told me, adoption will cure childlessness, but it won't cure infertility. And so just at the end of the day, you have to, there will still be emotional work to do. Not, I think just the process of being a mother is amazing, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And also I will always mourn the fact that I don't have control over when and how to build my family. That will always I think I'm over, I think I'm good, and then it will come up again. And so trying to make sure that I have a healthy support system surrounding infertility, and a healthy appreciation for the fact that our kids' genetics are different than us, and we love that. And also, it still is funny to us because people think, "Oh, he looks so much like you," and with our second son who doesn't really look like us, I'm still amazed because people are like, "Oh, he's going to be so tall," and like, that's so great that maybe he will be, maybe he won't be, but we love them for where they are, and not necessarily because they're like us, but because they are them. And we love seeing the biologies and the similarities they have with their birth parents. To us, that's really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's some things to think about. We are grateful for infertility because that has been a journey that's brought us to our kids, but we also know that it is a continual something to work through and something to figure out. And yeah, and the bond, like, obviously there's a different bonding process when they come from outside of your body versus inside of your body. And so not one is not superior to the other, but they are different. So I would imagine, but I don't know the other side. So I don't know. There's just always more to learn. I don't know everything, but I think just coming from a place of humility and trying to learn more and talking to other adoptive parents, Sean and Lynette, you guys were so helpful to talk to as we were waiting to adopt Theodore. And so that was really helpful for us in our journey to just have other adoptive parents and other experiences to learn from. So
maybe I'll just put in like how randomly it was that we met, that we had boys on the same soccer team, and we had been recently approved to adopt a 5th time. And I saw your picture on their website as a hopeful adoptive couple, and I was like, I swear I saw them like yesterday. And then we went to another soccer practice or a soccer game, and I was like, yep, that's them. And really awkwardly came over, and I'm like, hey, you're hoping to adopt, right?
Not awkwardly,
but I'm making in my mind I'm like, I hope this doesn't come out awkward. But I think just connecting with other people and having those type of conversations with people that are in similar situations is so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think just as far as I've met, a lot of parents are so happy to talk about it, like if you have an adoption experience.
So we haven't talked about this one yet. What are some of the lessons that the adoption process has taught you? Just
like the reality that, like, I don't know, I think before adoption, when it was just like this thing that we wanted for so long, I think I idealized like how awesome of a parent I was going to be, because like, we've had so much time to just like plan it out, and just like, I don't know, we're just like so mature. And then they come and they're kids, and like, yeah, it's still hard. It's still like,
you're still gonna fail. Like, we're still gonna do things wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because we, wanted it really a lot doesn't mean that we're gonna be superior at it. But
yeah, we had a lot of friends around us having children, and it's like, ooh, let's do that as parents. Let's not do that as parents. And
I'm sure that people say the same about us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think the importance of continuing or just continuing to learn about adoption has been important. And listening to adoptee voices, that's something I always like to ask. If someone says, "Oh, I'm adopted," I always like to ask, tell me more about what did you like as like being an adopted child, so that's something that I try and learn more as much as I can. I think, Matt, you are the same. We try and learn a little bit more, and then also learning to be a little bit more open about expectations with people, with language. And I think we've tried to, as we learn more, try and share that with friends so that we can eliminate the word real mom forever from people's vocabulary, and then also at the same time do it in a loving way that's not offensive. So it's tricky.
It's awkward.
But it can be awkward
like,
at times.
I feel very strongly about it, but I even still like have a hard time calling people out on things, especially their good friends or family members. Joanna's much better at it.
I don't know about better. I try and we don't want anyone to feel sad. So that's what's one thing is as we've adopted, we've tried to do is be like, oh, as a reminder, like just either on social media or a family text, like here are some of the things that we can do to help, you know, our child feel more comfortable as an adoptee in our family. You know, here are some things that we can do. So try and do it a little bit preventatively, not just as a
It's like a reprimand.
As a reprimand or a response, you know. And then as needed, every once in a while, it's mainly when I try and do it more when they're talking about other people, because you still hear the phrase like in the family culture, people are like, oh yeah, they adopted and then they had one of their own, right? And then we try and just very gently say like, oh, did they have a biological child after they adopted? That's really neat.
Or could we say that?
Yeah, but just try and do it gently. And then I think we still made people feel awkward every once in a while, but most of our friends and family are really open to it at this point. They know that we're doing it out of love and not out of judgment, and just trying to help foster that change. And because it's important to us that our kids, people will always say things, right? It's going to happen. But in our immediate family and extended family, that's something that we do try really hard to work towards. And we've, people have apologized. I'm so sorry I said that. It's totally fine. We don't want you to feel sorry. We're just trying to help form different patterns for the future. So yeah, that would be one thing. And then also trying to include our extended family as we develop relationships with our birth family. And so helping foster those relationships, so that my mom likes to send pictures to each of them. My mom wants, and I love that. I love that Katie has both my mom's number and Matt's mom's number. And so I like that we don't have to be the only ones to include them in our family.
So a lot of our listeners are considering adoption for the first time. You've gone through this twice now. What, if any, advice would you give to someone at the beginning of their adoption journey?
I would say let go of some control. I think just changing expectations at the beginning.
I also just say like assessing what it is that draws you to adoption, what it is you're expecting out of it, working out together what it is that you want it to look like for you specifically.
Yeah, I think even looking at, especially at the beginning, people will start asking like, are you open to a child with special needs? Are you open to foster care? Are you open? There are a lot of different paths to adoption, right? Agency, private, foster. There's so many different ones, and each of them has different things about them. And so I would just try and educate yourself on what does each of those potentially look like, and then also remember there are a lot of waiting couples. And so I think a lot of times agencies or other people lure you in by being like, oh, you can adopt faster by doing this, or you can adopt faster by doing that. And that is possible, but then also just changing your expectations a little bit to be more open to the fact that it might take longer. Your timeline might not work out. Maybe it will and maybe it won't. And so I feel bad saying this because it sounds depressing, but honestly, I think it would have helped me a lot to just say, I'm going to look anywhere between it taking 2 years to 10 years. And what can I do in a healthy way to help promote this adoption without feeling like it's completely out of my hands? Because it truly, a lot of it is out of your hands. Not everybody's going to feel comfortable being an influencer on Instagram. I'm sorry. Like I am not that person, and I wish I was, but I'm not, And so, but at the same time, I remember with our first son being like, nobody's going to choose us. We're like poor, we're a teacher, a musician. And then that was exactly what Celeste wanted, was a teacher, musician.
A poor teacher and a musician.
So, a poor. But at the same time, like if it's meant to be, it will be. And also just being the best that you can be and understand the process better, so that when it does come, you're ready for it and you have a better perspective. Because I think desperation makes us do silly things sometimes, or feeling out of control can be hard. So I don't know.
And like living life in the meantime, right?
Yeah,
like,
do do cool
like we're not just
things.
like sitting down like waiting for this to happen. We we have to live until it does, right?
Yeah, and live. So that it sounds, I don't know, maybe that's not the best advice, so take it with a grain of salt, but those are some things that I think can help with a healthy hoping to adopt and waiting for this special thing. But I really do feel like um whatever higher power or higher being or peaceful place that you can go to um trust in that, trust in like the good in the universe, that nobody else is going to take your baby. If this baby's meant for you and your spouse, or then do everything you can, and then also sit and do other healthy things. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think especially hoping to adopt can be really obsessive. Also, I would say if you're at the beginning of your journey, please like start watching out for scammers. They will come. These are not necessarily like the most positive, happy things that I'm sharing, so I apologize. But in the adoption world, there's so many vulnerable parties, right? A birth mother is very vulnerable, can be very vulnerable, and adoptive parents are very vulnerable because they want this so much. And so, and unfortunately, other people know that, and they prey upon both parties. And sometimes even I've seen adoptive parents in desperation do things that are not, like, I don't know, just not super ethical or not super great. And so I would say just be the best you can be and educate yourself and do what you can, but don't. I feel like some people go all out and overboard trying to attain something that really truly is out of your control.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
think
sure.
that's awesome advice.
I think as a brand new adoptive couple, we were thinking about like all of the things that we could do to make it happen faster. The first time, right, when we could have been like developing ourselves in meaningful ways so that we would be better individuals and a better couple and better parents ultimately, right? But it's so easy to get kind of obsessed and so tunnel visioned that I think the advice that you give is really important, that you have to take a step back and realize that it's not probably going to look exactly like you think it will.
Yeah, the timeline might not work out, right? And for us, this has been the same with infertility. This is the same with like adoption, where we have a certain timeline and hopes and expectations. And with all of that, it was like a lot of loss, a lot of dashed expectations, a lot of things that didn't work out. And so we tried to come up with things that we were looking forward to along the journey so that we didn't have to only rely on that specific part of our life. But that being said, like there are good support systems out there, because it is an emotional journey regardless of what it is, right? Like, and the waiting process is emotional. But like, even as I talked about Theodore being born, that was emotional, and as far as like anxiety and feeling, I don't know the right word, maybe bonded to this baby because I was just still worried. And then afterwards feeling a lot of guilt that you just want so much for this wonderful person who's given life to your child to be happy and to have their needs met, and knowing full well that it is a tough thing. They're grieving and they're going through a loss. And so seeing that up close, and it's beautiful, and it's also hard, and it's worth it, and it's also hard. And I'll say, just like as you're learning, like agency versus private are both options. We had obviously ruled it out for a long time with agency. Someone had told us, if you do end up going through an agency, your village will help. Like, you have a village, call on them. And they really did. And I would say, honestly, if you're considering adoption for any reason, talk to a therapist. Like, we're all about going to see a counselor. Matt and I have both seen counselors for different parts of our life, whether infertility or loss or just like dealing with things. And so, I mean, I know maybe it's a taboo, but we're pretty open about it, and it's been great. We each have our own counselor, and we see them every once in a while. I saw them more frequently when we were waiting for Theodore, because it was just, something more to work through. People are welcome to reach out to us too. My Instagram's PaceFam2010, and then you can also find our at Hopscotch stuff. So we're pretty open, happy to share whatever with people. Add us to your community. If you want to talk to someone, Sean and Lynette have been there for us. We would love to be there for you, whoever you are on your journey, and feel free to ask questions. And we have talked to other couples one-on-one. We don't know everything. We definitely still have a lot to learn, but we're grateful for that. Grateful for this way of building our family. So
we just know most things.
I hope the sarcasm comes through over there.
I was going to say any parting words, Matt, but I think that sums it up, right?
I feel like Matt's been so good with his dad jokes recently. Just something is right. So,
that's right.
Sorry for talking your ear out.
Adoption has helped me with my dad jokes.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Open Adoption Project, and thank you again so much to Joanna and Matt.
I loved how Joanna talked about how her mom and Matt's mom also both have relationships with their kids' birth moms, right? I thought that was really neat. How I think what she said was their family to all of our family, right? And so their whole families has adopted their kid's birth family, and it's just grown all across the board. I thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah, I love that relationships are created through adoption, and I think most people just assume that it's the parent-child relationship that's created or the birth parent and adoptive parent relationship, but really it could be so much more. And I think Joanna said this, but the more people we have in our village, the more love that our children feel, it's just going to be the best thing and maybe a better thing for them.
Yes, and I loved what one of their kids' birth moms said, that she was so grateful that it was this kind of open, because there are so many different kinds of open in adoption. Open adoption can mean such a huge array of different things, right? It can be just some emails every now and then, or it could be in-person visits and seeing each other frequently. It just looks so different in every situation. But I feel like one of our main goals and purposes is trying to help take fear out of the equation when trying to determine what kind of open adoption relationship is best for you and your family. Taking that fear out and just looking at what is really going to be best for your child.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We are wrapping up season 2 of the podcast. We have 2 more episodes left for this season, and then we'll be taking a short break and getting ready for season 3, which we're super excited about.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Open Adoption Project. We invite you to share our podcast with your friends or family members so that they too can be more educated and understand more experiences in the adoption community. We are grateful to each of you as our listeners and really hope that this podcast is beneficial to you.
Thanks so much, and we'll be back next week.